Everybody, everybody's supposed to hear. Sometimes the Mishnah, the daily Mishnah, really just screams out. It's so relevant and so raw, but also a little bit, honestly, a little bit painful and difficult because it raises so many issues. I wanted to share with you just one of those elements that came up today's Mishnah that's obviously so relevant to all of us. The Mishnah in today's Mishnah is Gittin Perik Daled Mishnah Vav. And the Mishnah says the following. Ein podin, very famous Mishnah. Ein podin et hashvuyim yoter al kedei dimehem mipnei tikun ha'olam. We're talking about, the Mishnah is a series of Mishnah about Tikkun HaOlam. Tikkun HaOlam, fascinating topic. Tikkun HaOlam is the upkeep of the world. Meaning, can the world function in a normal manner? Like these are halachot that are really not based on like the Torah or the mitzvah or the Masorah, but just common sense, common logic. Tikkun HaOlam. Tikkun HaOlam means the proper functioning of the world. The world can't function if the community or people act in a certain way. So there's a series of halachot the Mishnah are talking about in this chapter in Perek Dalet. But one of them is the following. Ein podin et hashvuyim. Shvuyim are captives. You cannot redeem captives, yoter al kedei demehem, for more than their value, mipnei tikun ha'olam, because of the functioning of the world. What does that mean, because of the functioning of the world? I'll just show you we'll read the Bar Tanur. The Bar Tanur says why. Because if you pay too much, then the non-Jews will capture more people. When they see that you're going to pay more for them, the more you pay, the more you're encouraging people to take other people that now you're talking about in a time of essentially lawlessness. I mean, the Jewish community, there was law, but obviously the government was not protecting Jews from being taken captives in order to extract payments, in order to basically extort the Jewish community for money. It's something that non-Jewish people, warlords, communities, even governments did all the time. Now, it's important to know, really, really important to know, these usually, it wasn't like an international or I would say a diplomatic issue. Like nowadays, like if the government of Iran doesn't like that, let's say it was just recently announced that Iran came to a deal, I think with the Netherlands it was, because basically in the Netherlands, they tried, I think it was the Dutch, They tried this Iranian person for war crimes, for crimes against humanity. They put him in jail. So Iran's like, okay, we'll take your person and put him in jail. Like it's almost the same thing. Like they say, you take our person, we'll take your person. You think you're just, we think we're just. This is not really what we're talking about. International diplomatic, using as diplomacy. It was rather a way of extorting money from the Jewish community. So says the Mishnah, common sense. Tikkun Olam is really a sense of common sense, proper functioning of the world. If you pay too much, you're just encouraging to do more. And so really, if you think about it, what the Mishnah is saying is we're asking, let's say they're demanding too much. So we're asking this individual family to suffer, even if they could raise the money, because of the effect it will have on the rest of the community. And this is something that we really struggle with today, because essentially what we have today in Israel, unfortunately, it's so painful, is you have on the one hand the needs, everyone would agree, the needs of the many, the needs of the community. If you give in too much to terrorists who capture individual people, you're only asking them to do more and you're encouraging to do it again, which is exactly what happens. And I think it's universally acknowledged, versus the pain and the terrible tragedy and the anguish of the families that are demanding, do whatever you have to do, which I totally understand, it makes sense. But it's very hard in today's society to stand up to them and say, no, we can't. We can't function as a country. We can't function as a society. The Mishnah says the following also. What about freeing captives? The Mishnah says, if you free captives, and you can't do it, it says the Bar Tanura, because you're just going to, in essence, what it's saying is they're just going to take more, and they're going to take more in a more achzari, in a more painful, difficult manner. That's tikkun ha'olam. So what they would do is they would capture people and they would hold them in like a room and they would give them good, reasonable conditions. But if you free them, they're not going to give you reasonable conditions because it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse for them in the future. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer takanat hashvuyim. No, because we're not worried about the future. Rather, ela al otam shem shvuyim limata. But we're worried about people with them. So it's really interesting. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says if you free some now, the others that are still being held, those are going to be in worse conditions. So according to the Tana Kama, let's say that we now do everything we can to prevent future people being captured. We have power. So therefore, according to the first opinion, you would definitely try to redeem those people that are captured. According to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, if you're worried about the other people, then maybe you shouldn't capture people. These are questions like such difficult questions that are raised in the Mishnah. To what degree do I have to worry about people, do I have to worry about, to take into account the needs of the families themselves versus the needs of the cloud, the needs of everyone? And it's interesting, and the Mishnah seems to say that's obvious. The hard part is if you're a leader, to stand up to people and to stand up to an entire media conglomerate that's being used against you to say, what, you're not sensitive? You don't care about the people? You don't care about the families? It's almost impossible to say. How do we teach a community to say this idea of tikkun olam, common sense? Like, we can't function this way. And if you say this, you're considered a wicked person, if you basically quote the Mishnah. And on the other hand, the idea of redeeming, you just have to, honestly, it's so difficult and so painful, but so important. We just have to sort of pray as we do for that God grant wisdom and the knowledge to understand, to be able to make these incredibly painful and difficult decisions that come out of the page of the Mishnah. All right, I guess we should stop here. Before we do, we should end up with a tefillah that Hashem should give our leaders this knowledge, and we'll dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Everyone should have a great day.